A car slamming into a wall at 120 kilometers per hour feels the same as falling from just 12 stories. Now imagine 60. October 13th, 2024. 26-year-old Lewis Stevenson set out to film what he hoped would be his most viral video yet. His target was to raw climb the Castilla-La Mancha Bridge, tallest in Spain, towering nearly 630 feet above the valley below. At first, everything seemed fine. Lewis scaled the lower sections with ease, but halfway up, a sudden gust of wind rattled the structure. His grip slipped once. Just for a second, but enough to make his friend below yell out in panic. Lewis laughed it off and kept climbing. He was determined to finish, even though warning signs at the base clearly stated, "No climbing, no exceptions." Then his sneaker slid against a beam. His body swung out into open air. Lewis fell. It only takes 3 seconds to fall from Spain's tallest bridge. And Lewis Stevenson lived all of them. Blunt force trauma to the head. When police arrived, they confirmed he died on the spot. They recovered not only the body, but also the footage from his GoPro. It showed the entire fall from his own perspective. And the most haunting detail, his friend, who had begged him not to climb in the first place, had to keep filming after the fall because he knew no one would believe it otherwise. What makes this worse is that his final words to his girlfriend, Savannah Parker, was "Good night, I love you," followed by "good morning" and 3 kisses. She later said that Lewis was not reckless in his love for life, but he was drawn to challenges that pushed him further than most dared to go. And that's what we all need to remember. Pushing limits is how we grow, but forget why those limits exist is how we die. In Planalto, Bahia, Brazil, a 14-year-old boy named Davi Nunes Moreira decided to try something that sounded like it belonged in a horror story. For an internet stunt, he crushed the remains of a dead butterfly, mixed it with water, and, unbelievably, took a syringe and injected the mixture straight into his leg. But the moment that liquid entered him, his body became a ticking time bomb. Inside, the fragments of wings and insect tissue acted like microscopic shards of glass. The injection site in his leg turned red, swollen, and hot to the touch. But the real nightmare was what couldn't be seen. The stagnant water carried bacteria directly into his bloodstream. Once there, they multiplied with explosive speed, releasing toxins that caused his blood pressure to plummet and his organs to begin shutting down, a condition doctors call septic shock. For 7 days, his body became a battlefield. His blood clotted in some areas while leaking uncontrollably in others. The infection triggered fevers, vomiting, and unbearable pain. His leg grew stiff, and every step felt like fire shooting through his muscles. By the end, his heart gave out, and at just 14 years old, Davi Nunes Moreira's life ended. His death is a reminder: curiosity without caution is deadly. On a summer morning in 1920, Charles Stevens, a 58-year-old barber from Bristol, England, climbed into what he believed would be his ticket out of debt, a homemade wooden barrel. Strapped to his feet was an anvil, meant to act as ballast and keep him upright as he plunged over Niagara Falls. But what he had really done was chain himself to a coffin. As the barrel tipped over the roaring Horseshoe Falls, witnesses on shore could hear the thunder of water swallowing him whole. Seconds later, the entire barrel exploded apart on impact with the churning pool below. The anvil, over 200 pounds of iron, ripped straight through the base, dragging Stevens violently downward. His safety harness, intended to protect him, instead locked him in place as the weight pulled him under. Rescue boats searched frantically. The only thing ever recovered was his right arm, still strapped to the shattered wreckage of the barrel. His body was never seen again. Stevens had hoped for fame and fortune, imagining lecture tours and a life free from debt. Instead, he became Niagara's first fatal daredevil. If he knew, he might have done it differently. October 5th, 2003. Thousands of spectators gathered at the Royal Gorge Bridge in Colorado to watch what was billed as one of the most daring stunts ever attempted. Dwayne Weston, a 30-year-old Australian skydiver and world champion in base jumping, stood at the edge, zipped into a black wingsuit. The plan was breathtaking. Weston would glide over the bridge while his teammate, Jeb Corliss, flew safely underneath. Two men slicing opposite paths through a 1,000-foot canyon, with the world watching. But when Weston leapt, he was already in trouble. Strong winds buffeted his wingsuit, and his trajectory dipped lower than expected. From the ground, the crowd gasped as it became clear. He wasn't clearing the bridge. He was headed straight for it. Traveling at 120 miles per hour, his body slammed into the steel support beams. The impact tore off one of his legs instantly and ripped his suit apart mid-air. For a split second, pieces of fabric and flesh scattered like confetti against the morning sky. Then, his body tumbled into the gorge, crashing onto the rocks 300 feet below. Spectators screamed. Some fainted, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Emergency crews rushed down, but there was nothing to save. Dwayne Weston had bled out on the canyon floor in front of hundreds of horrified onlookers. He had been one of the most skilled wingsuit pilots in the world, but even for the best, a single miscalculation at that speed leaves no margin for survival. The Royal Gorge never forgot that day. Even mastery couldn't save Dwayne, because skill can reduce danger, but it will never erase it. Nature always gets the final say. August 2025, a French streamer, Jean Pormanov, real name Raphael Graven, went live on Kick. What was supposed to be a record-breaking marathon stream, close to 300 hours, would instead become one of the darkest broadcasts in internet history. For 12 days straight, Jean was subjected to humiliation and abuse. At first, it looked like a twisted game, challenges carried out in exchange for donations, but it quickly spiraled. He was dunked underwater in simulated drownings until he gasped for air or struck with random objects. His co-streamers forced him to declare, on camera, that if he died, it would be because of his own bad health, not their actions. Off camera, Jean sent a chilling message to his mother. He said he felt kidnapped, that he wasn't being allowed to leave. By the final day, his body was failing. Viewers could see him struggling to breathe, slumped in his chair, barely conscious. When he collapsed, instead of helping him, one of his co-streamers hurled a bottle at his body and slapped him across the face, trying to force him awake. Moments later, the broadcast cut. Jean never got back up. At just 32 years old, his story, and those before him, is a brutal reminder that when cruelty becomes entertainment, we all lose. If you forget there's a human being on the other side of the screen, you've crossed the line.